Welcome to Business Aspirin, pain relief for business. Clint Junell has managed a restoration company in Dallas since 2008 and is one of the top drying experts in his region. Clint is also the co-founder of JobDocs, a software developed to help his team manage their overwhelming volume of projects. On the podcast, Clint brings together business managers and leaders to share with you how they have overcome their business pains and how you can too. And now, here's your host, Clint Junell.
First of all, Jimmy, thank you for joining me. Ladies and gentlemen, I have Jimmy Dieski from Elite Roofing and Restoration, EliteRNR.com, right?
Yes.
Is that your website? So if you guys want to look up Jimmy, you can do that. You can Google Jimmy as well. Jimmy's got an interesting story and background. We were thinking about, right before we kind of got on, we were thinking a little bit about how long we've known each other. And then we're 16, 17, 18 years maybe, right, at this point, right, Jimmy?
Yes.
And from completely different worlds at the time, and now both doing some similar things in regard to where life took us and what is going on in life around restoration. You focus more on the roofing space than the restoration space like I do, but we've had some similar stories and some similar occurrences. And Jimmy is a dear friend to me. We don't do a ton of stuff together, but every time I see Jimmy, we catch up very quickly. And I consider Jimmy a dear friend, good guy, great guy to have. So Jimmy, tell us about your business and just kind of get kicked off.
Wow. Where do I start? About Jimmy, I've been in business really ever since I was a kid. You know, I had a paper out when I was 10 years old. My older brother and older sister, we had the whole neighborhood. And as my older brother got old enough that he gave up his route, I took his, and then my sister gave up hers and I took hers. And I ended up with like 90 newspapers that I had to deliver on my bicycle.
Yes, sir.
But it was all about the money, back then when I was a 10-year-old kid. And then when I was about 14, there was some older guys in my neighborhood that owned a bar, and they used to pay us to unload the beer trucks. So I'm unloading cases and kegs of beer, for cash money back when I was 14, 15 years old. That was just what we did back then in the 70s, early 80s. And ended up going to work for a guy came in. It was a bar, kind of a neighborhood pub. And a guy came in for lunch one day in his dump truck. And I was outside literally sweeping the parking lot, doing odds and ends stuff for the owners. And it's funny because to this day, I'm friends with these guys. Yeah, on Facebook. Obviously, the magic of Facebook, we keep up.
Sure.
But they still talk about how when I was a teenage kid and I outworked most of the grown men that were around. Anyway, long story long, this guy came in for lunch one day and he grabbed the broom out of my hand. He says, "Hey, let me show you how to do that." And he just kept jacking with me. And then I was out back and he came up behind me and I was kind of in shape back then, just genetically. So he's like, offering me $100. Let's arm wrestle, kid. Let's arm wrestle. Like, man, leave me alone. I got work to do. So he came up behind me and grabbed me in a headlock, and I grabbed his head and kind of fireman's carry, took him over and slammed him on the ground when I was, 14, 15 years old. He's a 25-year-old man. I ended up going to work for him. Company called AJ Waterproofing. We did the French drain systems in basements back in Pennsylvania. And he's paying me $100 a day back in 1981, 82. I was making more money than my mom. Cash money, $100 a day when I was a kid. We were working 5-6 days a week.
Sure.
So I'm making $500-$600 cash money when I was a kid. So I've kind of always been in business for myself. I've always been my kind of own entity, if you will. I've worked for companies in different corporations over the years, but I just like being in business for myself. Sure. I hate traffic. I hate rush hour traffic. So I don't do many early morning appointments. And that's just a luxury of what we do is I can kind of set my own schedule. The downside to that is, like you, we don't clock in, clock out Monday through Friday and get an X amount of dollars every single Friday. So that's just kind of, there's pros and cons to both sides of it.
So, but entrepreneurial the entire time, right? Like you just have that entrepreneurial spirit and that go-getter spirit and the desire to work hard and execute well, right? And so that's what I know about you is one of those things is like you desire to execute well. And I think that's pretty great. So let's talk about, go ahead. No,
I was going to say, and all that, Clint, not all of it, but obviously, there's a saying, God is preparing you for what he has prepared for you. And all these every little thing that you do in your life, I'm sure you in your business, you can relate to. Now, when I was doing this, I didn't realize that I'm utilizing those skills now with what I do. So, it's like I said, God is preparing you for what he has prepared for you.
Sure.
So I worked for this guy, AJ, I was a 14, 15-year-old kid. He was 24, 25. And it was me and him and his big old dump truck. And Clint, we would go into people's houses and spend half the day protecting their stuff. Okay. As I'm sure you can appreciate with what you do as well, protecting their stuff. And then we'd go down in their basement and jackhammer the floor. Okay. All the concrete and dust and mud, and put it in 5-gallon buckets. Okay. With a shovel, and then carry it all the way through the house out to the driveway and dump it in his dump truck all day long. And when we were done, we would wash. I mean, that would be like the first day is the mess day. The second day, we'd go back in with the French drain, the pipes, the stone. Third day, we'd go back and concrete everything in and clean as we, worked our way out of the house. And he would literally have me, if we had to drive on the grass at all, he would literally have me on my hands and knees, and I would rake the grass back up. Like, so it would stand back up.
Standing back up.
I was standing back up. I mean, but it was just that little stuff, so now 40 years later, he's still in business. He's still doing what he does. He doesn't work like he used to. He's got a big old ranch in Pennsylvania, laid machines and everything else. But he taught me that, just how to do business,
And if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. That's what I hear there, right? It's like, this is worth doing right. And that, so for me, the point of this podcast is to find little nuggets that people can leave with. And if they just got that, we could almost be done. Just that nugget of execute well and do things well at the jump. Like, make the grass stand back up so it looks like we were never here. Yeah. Make everything above and beyond what it was when you got here. And I think that's great. And honestly, I know we fail at that at times, right? I'm sure you do too at times. I mean, but the mentality of trying to go to that level is spectacular. So let's talk about the roofing. How did you get into the roofing industry?
When I met you, we were flipping houses, right? When you were working for the builder, we were flipping houses. I've always had, ever since that guy, AJ, I've always had a construction background. I took a little brief hiatus when I did the other stuff. I was actually a superintendent when I left AJ. I not left him. I just stopped working for him. But I got hired on for a new home builder in Pennsylvania, much like a Toll Brothers or D.R. Horton, along those lines here. There's a company called David Cutler Group back in Pennsylvania. They hired me just as a labor foreman. So I was in charge of keeping track of the houses, who was coming in next. Okay, we got framers coming to lot 54. We got electricians coming to lot 73. And much like a builder, just tract home builder, it was almost like autopilot, because they were just kind of cookie cutter houses. We had 3 sample houses, the Avon, the Essex, the Wyndham, and then we had a B model of every single one of those. And all the subcontractors have been working for the builder for 30 years. So, I mean, they could build these houses in their
sleep. They did it on their own. Yeah, sure.
They do it on their own.
Sure.
So the guy that I worked for would literally come in, kind of wave to everybody, drive the subdivision, and then go play golf all day. But, just like anything else, every now and then somebody has a problem. So they're saying, hey, where's Bill? I'm like, golf course. I'll be right back. What do you need? Well, so I learned kind of on the fly how to diagnose problems in the building industry. This cabinet's too big, that wall, the framers put this in the wrong spot, stuff that you used to deal with as well. So I basically took over the subdivision.
Okay.
Back in 1988. They ended up firing Bill and hiring me as a 20-whatever-year-old kid in charge of 203 houses going up from the time that they were dirt until the time I did the pre-inspection and walked the people through the front door. So I learned a lot. I say a little. I learned enough to be dangerous about all the trades in the construction industry. Okay. Sure. Got laid off when we had Desert Storm, Desert Shield, our first Gulf War. George Bush Sr. sent troops into Iraq, Iran. The economy really just came to a screeching halt, and new home sales just stopped. So I was the youngest, the highest paid, first one to get laid off.
Yeah.
So lost everything, found myself living with my older sister, the one that we had talked about, collecting unemployment, and started spending all my time in the gym. I'm like, I'm either going to go to the bar with all my other knucklehead buddies, or I'm going to go start working out, because that's going nowhere fast. So a guy came up to me in the gym, and you know the story. Guy came up to me in the gym one night and said, hey, you're kind of a big guy. You know, you got a presence about you. Have you ever thought about wrestling? Wrestling, like, I don't go to school anymore. I don't know what you mean. And he said, you know, like TV, like Hulk Hogan. And I'm like, no, that's the dumbest thing in the world. I said, no, I've never, ever in my life, I've never in my life thought about that. And here's my business card. Bill David was his name. I remember it like yesterday. Bill David, $1 million bill, wrestling promoter, $1 million bill. So about 3 weeks living with my sister, broke. I literally found this guy's business card, and I said, all right, what's the deal with this wrestling stuff, and can I make a living? And he said, well, you have to go through a tryout, and then, you know, and then you get started. So out of 23 guys at the wrestling camp, I was the only one that made it through tryouts. 6 months later, I was in Memphis, Tennessee, live on Channel 5. I just left a construction background. Now I'm on television with a bunch of, with Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett and Kamala and Nikolai Volkov and all these guys. Like I said, I didn't really watch it, but I knew who these guys were.
Sure.
You know, 6 months ago, I was on a new home subdivision, and now I'm on television, you know, in Memphis, Tennessee. So it was really kind of culture shock for me. So anyway, so I ended up moving out here, wrestled sport touring for a little while, got married, met a guy. We got into business doing all the flipping the houses and everything. That's when I met you back in 05, whatever it was. And then that kind of fell apart. And I went for a few years there where I was struggling, and went through a divorce. Met my wife at church, and had a woman come to me and said, hey, I'm dating a guy who owns a roofing company in Fort Worth, and he's always looking for sales guys. And I'm like, okay, you know, and I knew nothing about hail damage or the roofing industry. I knew the roofing industry from new construction, but I didn't realize, you know, when I first started seeing the hail this big around, you know, I'm from Pennsylvania. You know, we get like frozen rain. You know, we get like pea size. You know, so when I moved out here, I'm like, man, what did you people do wrong?
God hates you or something.
Right? What have you people done wrong? But anyway, I went to work for this, you know, this roofing company in Fort Worth, and again, learned enough to be dangerous. And as you know, it's a shady industry. You know, there's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of room for, you know, funny business, literally funny business. There's a lot of room for that. And these guys, that was their MO, was they did kind of the, you know, the funny stuff with, you know, with the insurance money. Unfortunately, I started, you know, when I started, I had a lot of friends reaching out to me going, hey, just trying to help me. Come look at my roof. Come look at my roof. You know, come look at my roof. Sure. So I learned, but then, like I said, you know, I would go back to the owners of the company and say, hey, when are we doing this on my buddy's house? Oh, we're not actually doing that. You know, we make more money if we don't do it. Like, but insurance company is paying for it. Oh yeah, I know, but yeah, we just know. I'm like, but he's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like what we talked about with AJ. I mean, just do the right thing. You know, so it was actually my wife. I got so frustrated, Clint, with these guys. Then I found out that they were like literally skimming off the top from all their sales guys before we even got paid one day. And I literally had a come to Jesus meeting with the owners of the company. I called them in on a Saturday and handed them each forms in triplicate and said, here's how much money you owe me. I've gone through all the books. And I was very good at keeping track of, you know, I still kind of OCD, EFG, all that, you know, keep track of my the little stuff. And it was my wife. She said, honey, just go do this on your own. She said, stop jacking with these guys. She said, you've been in business for yourself, you know, just go do it on your own. And that was it, you know. And
so that's how Elite started.
Yeah.
Elite started as a result of really what was a pain.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
The pain of navigating others that weren't trying to do the right thing, which goes back to our first nugget that we came up with. Like, just do the right thing. Yeah. Do it excellently and do those things to the best of your ability. And that's crazy, right? Like, I wonder as we go through, as I do more and more of these, what similar stories that we're going to run into in terms of, hey, I started this business as a result of individuals not doing what they should be doing and not doing it well. Yeah. And I would imagine we're going to run into a lot of that. Well, it's going to be interesting to see.
And there's a lot of companies that are spawned off that way, that guys go to work for a company and they're like, wow, I can do this better, or I can do this more legitimately or literally legally, and not, for better words, screw people. Because it was never about the money for me. I mean, I've made lots of money. I've lost lots of money. It was never about trying to knock everybody's heads off every single job and get as much, like these guys. And and it was just one particular job, just a dear friend of mine that I've known. I mean, he used to babysit, since my daughter was even born. State Farm came out. I mean, not to name names. State Farm came out, paid for his roof, paid for his gutters. We put his roof on. And I went into the owner of the company. I said, hey, when are we doing my buddy's gutters? Oh, we're not doing his gutters. I'm like, yeah, we are. I have the paperwork right here. State Farm. It says gutters. It says it right on there. No, we make more money if we don't do the gutters. And I'm like, man, I'm not okay with that. Why don't you, matter of fact, why don't you just don't even do the roof? And if you're going to go big, right? Just take all his money.
That seems fair, right? Like,
punch him in the face and take his whole check. Why even bother putting the roof on? And that was just, and that's very, unfortunately, that's very common in the roofing industry. Is kind of this, again, the insurance money. They want, there's a saying, money makes people funny. Money will bring out the true character of everybody. Money makes people,
Sure. And I think what you're talking about leads to a problem in the space overall with insurance companies, right? So because you have people doing what is happening in that environment that you're explaining, then when those of us actually try to charge legitimately for the things that we actually did, it's a fight to get paid for what you did. Oh, well, that's not industry standard. You shouldn't be doing that. Or they try to block costs on various things. I think it's very similarly related. So it's not all their fault. It's similarly related to the fact that they know people are taking this money and not doing all the work they should be doing.
Correct.
And
homeowners and contractors alike. Homeowners and
absolutely. Yeah, there's nobody that's immune in that environment, right? We've had clients that have wanted to take the money and not do the things, and some of that's okay if you don't try to get the depreciation. Right. But then in other cases, they're trying to do all of it. And it's like, well, wait a minute.
Wait a second.
You can't do all of this way. And, it's just interesting.
Do you really want to sign up for a felony? Because I don't.
Yeah. It's an interesting concept to navigate all of that.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to just, say what you mean what you say, and do a good job.
Sure.
Clean up and just the little things like that. I mean, and not to sound, high on my horse, but it just makes it that much easier to shine.
It does.
Like, my gosh, I mean, if all these other guys are doing that, just show up, do a good job, treat people right. My father-in-law, this was 13 years ago when I first started, 14 years ago, whatever it was, area in Coppell got hit. And a lot of friends of mine called me, and I was literally up till 4:00 in the morning trying to facilitate everybody. Sure. And my father-in-law at the time before he retired was general manager of a company that did staffing. And he called me and he says, hey, let's really ramp your business, get you a bunch of sales guys, get you a bunch of office staff, get you this, get you that. I said, it's not what I want. Oh, you're missing out on a bunch of business and work. And, my daughter tells me that you're up till 4:00 in the morning. I said, I am. I'm tired. I'm exhausted, trying to make everybody happy. But that's not what I want. It's not about the dollar, because I don't want the quality of what I want to go down, and you're only as good as your worst employee,
Sure.
Because he's wearing your logo, whoever that person might be, you're only as good as your worst guy or girl, because they're representing your company somewhere out in North Texas.
That's right.
So I told him, I said, that's not what I want. I said, I like it. I explained it to my son like being a plate spinner in the circus. I said, those plate spinners, they set up a pole and they get a plate, another one, and they get a plate, another one. Before you know it, there's 7, 8 plates down the line. And then number 3 starts getting wonky, and then 5, and then run right back and forth like a madman. And then the plates start falling. I told him, I said, I don't ever want to hear plates falling. I like being right here.
Let me give the however many I can actually do and do well and make that work. Yeah. And it's it's funny to hear you tell some of those stories, right? Like, so clearly you had a good background and had some good training and some good insight coming into the space. Like, you saw plenty of things beforehand that said, don't operate this way. Don't do these things. Avoid this conflict. And that's great. But in that, there's still something somewhere that you know now that you wish you would have known when you started. Right? So what is it that you know now from your own experiences that you wish you could have shared with a 20-year-old version of you that is just going to get started? Like, what is it you would tell a younger you getting started?
Listen more. I'm still working on that. Listen to people that have got more experience than I do in certain things.
Sure.
Like I said, when I first started off on my own, like I said, I didn't know the insurance industry. I didn't know hail damage that well. I didn't know a lot of stuff. I mean, down to like literally there's a black line, on a shingle, that I didn't, and there was a guy named Darcy that I would literally call almost every single day, sometimes a couple times a day. And I would literally preface my phone call, say, okay, dumb question of the day. What is that little black line on the shingle? Oh, that's a shadow line. And then I call the homeowner back. Oh, yeah, that's a shadow line, that line under the shingles. So I just, always, that was my biggest thing, was if I could go back as a kid and really pick the brain of some people. And it's kind of like going to the gym. You never want to go ask somebody that's out of shape, hey, what do you do? You go find somebody that like, hey, I like the way that they have a good physique. Let me ask them some tips and tricks. Same thing. Somebody's got a good business model, or somebody's been doing what you in your field for a longer period of time. Ask them questions. Find a mentor. That's something I wish I had done as a kid, was really leaned on, some more experienced people.
Sure. And so I think that to me brings up a great point, which is it's tough in a lot of cases to put the ego aside and find somebody that's smarter than you. Because we want to be the smartest person in the room, right? But the law of diminishing returns says, if I hang out with somebody that's dumber than me, I'm not gaining anything. Right? So I get what you're saying, man. And I think it's spectacular. Like, I'm going to enjoy doing this podcast simply because of things like that, these little nuggets that pop up. And I'm like, that's something that's great. What's a mistake that you've made or that people make and you see made that is hard to fix?
Not doing what you say you're going to do. You can't ever go backwards. And my wife I could have 100 jobs going on, Clint, 99 of them just like, just rolling along. Everything's going great. And I'll have one, that I don't, that's the one I focus on. I can't, that just sticks with me because like you being in business for yourself, I tend to take things extra personally,
that's something you can preach on right there.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to take things extra personally because it is my company. It is my name on it. So, my wife's like, honey, you can't please everybody. It's impossible. It's impossible.
You can do things perfectly on a job and it's not going to go well because the customer doesn't want to be pleased, right? Yeah. They want to have something to complain about. And we've experienced that. And those I've learned to try to just kind of wash that off and go, okay, well, these people are just crazy. And there's going to be some of those.
And I'll tell you, I have the hardest time, Clint, I have the hardest time with that.
I do too. I want it to always be perfect. I want us to do our job so
everyone
well.
To sing your praise. I mean, always.
I do. It doesn't always happen. 95% of the time it's going to. And we've got some that we're dealing with that it's just like, there's clearly something wrong with you to believe what you're saying, to actually articulate verbally what you're saying is like, clearly that's not the case.
Funny,
right?
quick story. I don't, praise God, I don't knock on doors. Mm-hmm. North Texas, if you live in North Texas, you've had a roofer knock on your door.
Absolutely.
I don't care who you are. If you live in North Texas, a roofing contractor has, unless you live in an apartment, a roofing contractor or a guarded gated community, roofing contractor has knocked on your door.
Absolutely.
I've never, Clint, knocked on a door since I've been in business. I had to when I worked for that other company.
Sure.
Thankfully now I'm established enough now, again, not to toot my own horn, doing a job probably 10, 12 years ago, big house down in Colleyville. And the neighbor says, you need to go take a look at my neighbor David's house. He's got the original roof on it, just like I did. And I'm like, man, I hate knocking on doors. I hate knocking on doors. So I said, all right, I'll go. So I went and rang the doorbell. Guy opened the door. He says, can I help you? I said, yeah. I said, I'm Jimmy. I said, I'm working on your neighbor's roof here. Just want to know if you had your roof looked at lately. Not interested. Bam! Slams the door in my face. And I'm like, oh my God, and I could see from the street, Clint, this guy's roof was just
trashed. Sure.
It's $1 million house. And so I get home. My wife's like, hey, how was your day? How's your day today? I said, you know how I hate knocking on doors? She said, yeah. I said, I rang this guy's doorbell and he slammed his door in my face. She's like, honey, you need to give that guy some grace. You don't know what's going on in his world. You need to give him some grace. I'm like,
there. Shut up, woman. Shut up, woman.
Shut up, woman.
It's not what I want to hear right now.
Clint, that stuck with me. I mean, I could still, about 3 months later, I'm back down in that same subdivision and I look up and I see a truck in the driveway and I'm like, and something just touched my heart, said, go do it again. Not in a jerk kind of way, but just go try it again. I'm like, for real? Went and rang the doorbell. Guy answers the door. I said, hi, I'm Jimmy. I'm working with, Shane. Oh, I know them. Yeah. Have you had your roof looked at? No, go ahead. And I'm like, it's the same guy. I know it's the same guy. It's his doppelganger or something. I'm like, it's the same guy. So I got up, looked at his roof, came down, showed him everything. We called State Farm. State Farm came out, paid for his roof gutters, everything else. I'm signing a contract with him, Clint, and he's got braces from his palm of his hands to his elbows. He's got braces on both arms.
Okay.
And he's trying to sign a contract. And I asked people the dumb questions like, do you have
what's the story?
Carpal tunnel, what is it? He said, I got bit by a tick when I was 7 years old and I have Lyme disease. He said, and every so often I have a really bad day. And I'm like,
grace. Wow.
That day, you slammed your door in my face. You don't remember me, but you slammed your door in my face.
Yeah.
That must have been one of those bad days. So long story long, put the roof on, put his gutters on. He said, Jimmy, can you do me a favor while you're here? He said, I have one of those, he called it a windy chicken, those weather vanes, the rooster.
Yeah, sure.
For his, little steep walk on his roof. He said, I bought it for my wife for her 50th birthday 10 plus years ago, and it's been sitting in my garage ever since. Can you put it on? I said, absolutely. So I literally myself built a nice little bracket for it, mounted it up on his roof. 6 weeks later, Clint, I get a call from State Farm. We have a mutual client in David. I said, oh, yeah. They said, well, David's been a client of ours for 30 plus years. And we know he can be a challenge to do business and deal with occasionally. Well, he came into our office raving about you and the job that you did. We would like for you to come down and meet with all of our adjusters. And we'd love to do anybody that treats our people the way you treated him. We would like to do business with you. I'm on the preferred vendors list now with State Farm because of David.
Yeah. On the roofing side. It's awesome.
Yes. And you can't buy that. People are like, I'm like, you can't.
No, you can't. Yeah, sure. Sure.
So unfortunately, he passed away a few years back. I actually helped his wife sell the house, went down. She called me and said, hey, he passed away. Can you help me get this place all put together and get it, So again, it's funny now because with what my father-in-law did back so many years ago, trying to bring on staff and really blow everything up, he sees the way we do business now. I've got a crew, I've got multiple crews, but now he refers to it as my roofing ministry.
Yeah, sure. Which it is in your case, right? There's a lot of opportunities there to serve.
Well, I mean, it's just everything that we do. I mean, you get to know people. You're in their house. Sure. You're doing business together. You're small talk. You're death, divorce, taxes, kids, everything in between. So it's just part of doing business. Like I said, when my wife and when she finally said, honey, just go do this on your own. I walked into the courthouse down on South Lake Town Square with $100 and DBA'd myself that day. And we started off on a TV tray, in our little apartment in Los Colinas, literally on a TV tray. I had a laptop, and that was my office. This coming weekend, this Saturday, the 25th, my Designing Spaces episode airs again. They had such a good review of it that this Saturday and Sunday on Channel 27, Designing Spaces is going to air my episode again this coming weekend.
That's so great, dude.
So, so now I get to say we went from a TV tray to a TV show.
Look at that.
So
it's great, man. And I love the journey, right? Where you and I have stayed connected all this time and just kind of know what's happening and what's going on, even to the point of, having COVID similarly together and navigating all that and just being able to watch you. And it's just great, man. And I love it.
Every time I see one of your trucks, man, I smile. Every time I see one of your trucks go by, I smile.
Well, I appreciate that, man. What are some of the pains in business that you've experienced?
People.
Both employees and customers, right? Some of them.
Just people. Yeah. Matter of fact, I just this morning signed a contract with a guy, kind of a 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon. His sister used to date my old gutter installer. The guy went through a divorce. I tried helping him. And finally, I'm like, I just had to cut him loose. I'm like, man, I'm trying to help you. He did all my gutter installations, but he had a drinking problem. He had just gone through a divorce and just constantly coming to me for money. And I'm like, man, I paid you. So can I get an advance? And then now he's out on an oil rig somewhere in Corpus Christi and he's loving life. I get a text message.
Good for him.
he's out away from other people because he was just dealing with people. Clients.
That's tough. And even in this market right now, it's even weirder, right? And I think most of the people are realizing that everybody's understaffed. You can't find employees that want to work. I don't understand why all of this is happening the way it is and where they've gone and what they're doing, but it's hard to find good people. And man, I've been on both companies. Obviously this podcast is more of a Job Docs sponsored style podcast than it is a Mr. Restore podcast, because the goal here is with the business aspirin is to gather information and nuggets that can help others succeed in business and come up with ideas and figure out ways to solve pain points. Right. Yeah. But I'm telling you, people is one, right? So what can you do to solve that pain? The people pain is hard.
Grace.
Sure.
That's really it is, like I said, when you're in the people business, you're going to have a clash of personalities, characters, ethics, all of it, sure. And you just have to, the biggest thing is just stay true to who you are, do the job that you always would have, whether it's a, 1,500 square foot house or a 15,000 square foot house, regardless of the dollar amount and decimal point, just do your best job. And then you don't ever have to answer that. My father passed away when we were kids. But he used to tell me, he said, I don't care if you're cleaning a toilet, clean it the best that you can. He said, so that way, when you walk away and if somebody asks you, that's the best that you could do. You can't ask for more than that. Right. And if you can do it better, then show me how to do that. But always that's it. Just do your best.
Yeah. Do your best. Yeah.
And like we said earlier, you can't please everybody.
Sure.
Nobody.
Sure.
You can't. It's absolutely as much as I get so frustrated, like with that guy David, trying to please everybody. Sometimes we just have to let it go and say, hey, that's the best that I could do. I did everything I said I was going to do. I cleaned up. I raked your grass. Good luck to you.
Yeah. And then just, see where it goes and then offer grace, right? If it doesn't go the way it should.
That's it. And
part of it.
Weird thing, I'm sure you've maybe experienced this. Some of those people that you think you didn't click with turn out to be your biggest fan.
Sure.
And then you end up getting referrals and business from you got my name.
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah. You're like, wait a minute. I thought they hated us, right? No, they really loved us and just in an odd way. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people have been a struggle for the entirety of operating Mr. Restore, right? Which is honestly why we even created the software. It's because I needed to figure out how to not have to meet with my team all the time to know what was going on because it was too confusing to get them all in one room and have these meetings with them about, okay, where are we on this? Do we need to be calling the adjuster to request the depreciation? Do we need to send a second draw request? And so we try to automate as much of that as we could because we wanted to take, not that I didn't want people, but I wanted the human error removed. So we try to do that. And then we want to be able to communicate because to me, one of the biggest things in the restoration space, which I'm sure is the same in the roofing industry, is being able to communicate what's going on to the client, being able to set their expectations with them correctly. Because in our case, not so much in yours, but in our case, people are removed from their home. So be like, hey, you're going to be out of your house for the next 4 months.
Right.
Well, then they want to know what's happening. Like, you got to communicate to them what's happening. And so, like, on the people side, I get it. Like, dealing with personalities, navigating what people want, what they expect is always, vital. And so I'm 100% with you. What?
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. Typically most of what I do is on the exterior of the house.
Sure.
Roofing, exterior stuff. Right now, actually, I've got some interior stuff. The guy had a leak, to where we had the schedule going into his house. He's like, hey, we got to be done by 2:00 because my wife and I are going to a doctor's appointment. So I can imagine what you do.
Yeah.
That would wow.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
That's business aspirin in itself.
Yeah, for sure. Or needing aspirin.
Right.
Needing lots of aspirin. Maybe
navigating through that, because that's the people industry. Sure. Because they're in their personal space, sure, around their stuff. And I again, like you, I mean, I only try and hire people that I would trust in my own house, sure, around my own kids, around my own daughter, everything else. So when you have people out on the job, you can
expect them to do something right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? Are there any challenges you want to try to address that you would share with somebody else? Or is there anything that I haven't asked about or we haven't discussed that you go, I think this is important that this is said on the podcast?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, it's really, I mean, sometimes we, overthink things, and it's really just, it comes down to being simple. Again, say what you mean what you say, do a good job, clean up, and realize that not everybody is going to be your biggest fan. When it comes to clients and personnel alike, don't take things so personally. Sometimes we have to step back. That's where my wife is so amazing with that. So it's funny because I end up giving guys more chances and more chances. Yeah.
To your own detriment, right? Like, which is exactly the same thing I do, right? There's so much that's so similar about you and I, Jimmy, that's unbelievable. And which is that's why it's almost comical, the COVID story as well, right? It's so we have to do that together too. It's unbelievable. But man, I want to be respectful of your time. And that's
like I said, I blocked off my morning. This was Clint Day. It was on my calendar.
That's so awesome.
Being said that, I said, you got whatever you need, brother. I'm all yours.
Well, I definitely appreciate you joining me, dude. Like, it's great to have you here. And I'm excited about the information. Like, there's, again, like, the goal is to try to find little nuggets of information. Mm-hmm. And hopefully this conversation helps solve problems for others. And they don't have to be brand new in business. Maybe they've been running business for 20 years and they're just struggling to try to do something, right? They can't get over $1 million in revenue or whatever the case may be. And they're like, you know what, if I did that one thing, if I just knocked on David's door one more time,
what would happen? That, your treasure where your heart, your treasure is where your heart is. I found that if I stop focusing on the money and focus on the job, the money's going to follow. Money's going to follow. Again, for instance, I got
back to doing the right thing again, right?
Back to doing the right thing. I had a job in Dallas many, many years ago, and people were struggling. He had just gotten laid off, and I said, you know what? I'm having a phenomenal year. I ended up going negative on this one job, but I was okay with it. I was like, you know what? I got plenty of work. To this day, they're good friends of mine. Clint, the last day on the job, I mean, literally, I knew, I lost about 15 grand on the job. Okay. Back then, this was, 10, 12 years ago, a lot,
sure.
But I just dropped it in, like, literally, I just had a barrel. I was like, I'm just dropping it in that barrel of work and it's going to wash itself out somewhere. Literally. And I went down, did some of the work myself. I used to frame houses way back when I was a kid. So I did some of the stuff, built on a big, nice fence.
Sure.
Literally the last day on the job, the next door neighbor came over and said, hey, I've seen you working over here. I ended up getting West Nile that summer, got bit by a mosquito. They had a private pond in the back of the house.
Wow.
I forgot about that. Anyway, next door neighbor comes over. He said, hey, could you come take a look at my roof? Went over and looked at hers. They own the largest produce company in the nation. So still to this day, I'm still getting work from that big Italian family. Well, hey, my sister and my brother, and then my mom, and then
Isn't it great how that works?
Carpool, and then one of the guys in the carpool is one of the big prominent Dallas attorney firms here that you hear on the radio. So now they're buddies of mine. Now I've done all their roofs, now all their fence. So I'm like, everyone's like, man, how'd you get into this, clientele? And I'm like, dude, it's nothing. I just do.
How many repeats have you done so far? Like, because the hail comes through all the time. I know it doesn't always hit the same areas, right? But what percentage is repeat of the, not referral, but repeat of the exact same customer has to have another roof done again?
I've got a guy up in Little Elm. I put his roof on 6 times.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. And not to sound funny or anything, but he's an Asian guy. And he says, Mr. Jimmy, I like see you. But no more for my roof.
Yeah, I don't want to do this again. I love that I know somebody can fix it, but do not come back to my house again, for God's sake.
Weird spot in Little Elm that every other year he gets hit with hail. And again, in the roofing industry, it's kind of, fly by night. These guys are in and out, bang, 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 make as much money as we possibly can. Screw the people as much as we possibly can, and then give them a 24 to maybe a 36-month warranty, and we're out. It's not our problem anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
That they're not going to honor anyway, right?
They're not going to honor anywhere. They're going to fight you. I come with a lifetime warranty. It's till death do us part. When I put your roof on, I tell people it's your house, but it's my roof. Even if you pick up and move and sell the house, my warranty stays with that roof, because what happens is 2, 3, 5, 7 years, whatever, when the hail hits, if you had Joe's Roofing and Joe only gave you a 3-year warranty, and on the 37th month, you get hit with hail, you have no ties to Joe. Right. You have no ties to him whatsoever. Now you can talk to Mr. Door Knocker. But with me, they're like, well, Jimmy put his roof, put our roof on last. He comes with a lifetime warranty. Let's just call him back again. And again, it just goes back to doing a good job. Do I have to go out and fix, stuff's going to leak, caulk, fails, flashing fails, stuff happens. So every now and then we'll have to go do a repair for free. But again, it comes back, 1,000 times over just by, again, it keeps on going back to, do what you say what you mean, all of that, do a good job, clean up, treat people right. The money will 100% guaranteed follow.
Yeah. It's awesome, dude.
This has been a Business Aspirin, Pain Relief for Business podcast. If you're a business owner trying to overcome your business pains, follow us on Apple Podcasts or visit our website for more information, job-docs.com.